The Oklahoma Sooners picked up another commitment in the 2024 class from four-star Danny Okoye. We'll talk about that. Plus, are the Sooners down potentially a safety, and special teams has been special, all on today's episode of Locked On Sooners.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners. Today's episode is brought to you by Jase Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jase case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's Jase medical.com. Thank you for joining us. My name is John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. Josh is here with me, as he is always. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday from 9 to noon on the KREF Sports app. The show is at Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. The Oklahoma Sooners get another blue chip commitment to the 2024 class, this time coming from the number 1 prospect in the state of Oklahoma, Mr. Danny Okoye, out of the Noah Homeschool Academy.
Big time pickup. Obviously, the potential of Danny Okoye is really, really impressive. Probably the biggest knock against Okoye is that he plays for Tulsa Noah, right? I mean, other than that, probably everybody, what you've seen, you've liked in terms of his ability as a pass rusher and what he brings to the table. Obviously, enough folks from the Power 5 variety liked him to earn offers and, you know, have the finalists of Texas and Tennessee. So probably that's all you really need to know. It's another big-time add to go along with what John is already a terrific defensive line class for OU.
Yeah, an incredibly athletic player, a guy that's 6'4" and does backflips, but also deadlifts over 700 pounds. I don't know if you don't follow Danny Okoye on social media, his feats of strength are incredibly impressive for a high school kid with his height. And I mean, he's not an overly big dude. He's 240. I mean, he's going to have room to grow and add more weight and strength, but his athleticism, his quickness, all of that stuff is going to be easily translatable to the next level. And Josh, you mentioned it, a number of Power 5 schools, including Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, anybody was in on this kid. And it comes down to Oklahoma, and they're getting a bona fide star at edge. Now, he's not one of your tweener types that is going to be somebody who can flex as a defensive end and defensive tackle. Maybe at some point down the road that could be the possibility. But I mean, he looks more like a true edge, similar to maybe an Adepoju Adebare or an R. Mason Thomas, someone who you're lining him up at defensive end. You're not worried about his position flexibility because of his athleticism and his length off the edge and what difference that will make in both the run and the pass game.
Not to make this a totally then and now situation, but in some ways it is for Danny Okoye, because he commented as much that when he first visited Oklahoma all the way back, I guess it would have been 2020 with Lincoln Riley and that staff, he said he never saw Lincoln Riley on his visit. Obviously, recently he saw Brent Venables, and Brent Venables, along with the rest of the staff, was front and present and a big part of why Danny Okoye is coming to OU. Now, you know, if you had fast forwarded and it's the end of a cycle, okay, Lincoln Riley's probably there, but I do think that it feels like Brent Venables is more front and center along the way for kind of every recruitment for Oklahoma, and that energy doesn't change. Because listen to this other quote about what Okoye said about the fit with Oklahoma, John. Quote, "The push has been more genuine than most. A lot of times coaches don't understand how to talk about much outside of football, and a lot of times it can get in the way of building a connection. With a lot of the coaches at Oklahoma, it's family first, football second. That played a big part in how I feel about them, about the connections I built with Chavis and Bates and those guys," end quote. So the relationship building that we talk about with this staff and how, John, they're just good at it, and the genuine nature of it. It's not even, hey, they're good at at this recruiting thing, which obviously they are, Danny Okoye buys that it's a genuine relationship that's being built. And as compared to Oklahoma's past, its present is just simply better in that respect, John.
You can't fake authenticity. You can't fake caring. And everything you hear about this staff, it doesn't matter if it's a 2022 kid, 23 or 24, it's the staff. They really truly believe in the relationship that it's being built. And I mean, you can talk about how relationships don't win football games, things like that. But for a program that wants to be relational, not transactional, I mean, mission accomplished. Like, they continue to reveal this is the thing that's important. And it's what stands out to athletes, to parents, to, recruits that are way down the road, 26, 27, like all this stuff stands out. And, you don't want to do the comparison thing, but it just never seemed like that was on Lincoln Riley's radar very much. It was football. With Brent Venables, it goes beyond. And that's what he said from the outset of coming to Oklahoma. He wants to have the players that come to Oklahoma prepared for more than just what happens between the lines. And that's the stuff right there that resonates with family, because mom and dad, I mean, yeah, they want you to pursue the thing you're passionate about and good at and want you to excel, but they're also in the back of their mind thinking, okay, well, what if this doesn't work out? What's going to be the next step? That's just what every parent goes through. I'm sure of it. You don't have a guarantee that your kid is going to make it to the league and become, Micah Parsons, who's on the verge of becoming one of the highest paid non-quarterbacks of all time. No, you have to weigh the potential that, okay, maybe they don't make it. So what's that going to look like? Well, Brent Venables and his staff, the recruiting staff, the coaching staff, everybody on campus, they care more than just about football. They want to see these kids succeed in all facets of life. So I think while people get bored and kind of tired of hearing about the relational aspect of all this, that's the stuff that matters in the long term. And it's also the stuff that allows them to over recruit a position and get the kids to buy in to the idea that, okay, you may not come to Oklahoma and play right away, but if you trust us, you trust the process, down the road, we're going to get you on the field. We're going to get you involved. And I think that's the stuff that allows Emmett Jones to go and recruit 5 wide receivers in a cycle, or this defensive line, Miguel Chavis and Todd Bates to go and shoot their shot to try to recruit 8 defensive linemen in a cycle. They've gotten 5 of the 8 in Gilmore, Stone, Jackson, Nigel Smith, and Danny Okoye now. But you can do that because you're building trust by building these relationships. I mean, so much of coaching, honestly, is about trust. Your players need to trust that when you need to tell them both the good and the bad, that they trust that you're going to be okay, and you're going to still ride or die with them, even if things aren't going well. And I think that's why it's so important that this coaching staff is building that trust, building those relationships, taking it deeper than just the X's and O's of what happens on the football field, because football players are more than the X's and O's. And I know at some point we're going to talk about the Lincoln Riley article or the article that got Luka Evans suspended by the USC football program. But that article that got him suspended was an article that took us beyond the X's and O's and deeper into what a player is like, the depth of players and football players. And that's what the coaching staff is trying to do, is understand, like, you are more than just a football player, and we want to take care of the whole person, not just the football player.
Couple final thoughts here, and absolutely the sole mission. That's why it's a foundational piece for Oklahoma, is because they practice what they preach. A couple of just final thoughts here on Okoye. He strikes me as very, very mature for his age. Just listening to him speak, not even just the deeper radio voice, but he just sounds mature for his age. The fact that some of the things that he was weighing his recruitment, that, simply put, not every 17-year-old kid, and understandably, I'm not knocking other kids. It just isn't often that you always hear somebody like Okoye say, he's talking about Caleb Kelly, right? And it just shows that what Oklahoma sold to him, it resonated. He says, quote, even though Caleb Kelly couldn't fulfill his goal of going to the NFL, Oklahoma was there to take care of him and help him achieve what he wanted in life. He goes on to say, football's not forever as much as we wish it was. I feel like a lot of recruits forget that. And he goes on to explain why, obviously Oklahoma, what they provide is important, right? And I just, I think that is something that, how could that not stand out here about Okoye, that he's just maybe from a maturation standpoint, a little bit ahead of some of the other guys that go through this process. And then in closing here on Okoye, the kid's the number 1 rated player from the state of Oklahoma. He's a blue chip talent by On3, by ESPN, by Rivals. So we can sit here and talk about the fit, and I do think that he's mature for his age, and yet the football player himself is incredibly, incredibly gifted.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's going to be an impact player, just like all these guys that Oklahoma's recruited to their defensive line class for 2024 are going to be. Like, it's a great class. Even if you didn't add Danny Okoye, adding Danny Okoye just takes it up a notch. Now the number 5 recruiting class, according to Rivals, number 7, according to 247 Sports, I believe number 8, according to On3. So solidified pretty much as a top 10 class as we sit here on September or middle of September. So we're going to have more to follow on this, several more high profile recruitments going on with the Oklahoma Sooners. We'll see how those transpire over the next few months. But next we're going to talk about another injury that we might be without another person here on Locked On Sooners. We'll talk about that after the break.
Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. The Jase case, what is it? Well, it provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you that peace of mind that you're looking for, so that you aren't unprepared when the unexpected arrives, so that you're not just hoping. No, instead you have access to medication in the instance of an emergency. Jase Medical, they make sure that you have that medication in hand. And oh, by the way, Jase Medical, it's simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and so much more. So don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jase Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using our code LOCKEDON at checkout at jasemedical.com. That's Jase, Jase medical.com, promo code LOCKEDON.
And now on Locked On Sooners, we're going to talk about another potential injury that we have to deal with going into this game against Cincinnati on the road at Cincinnati in Knight Pert Stadium. Reggie Pearson was mentioned in Brent Venables' media availability as someone they were hopeful would be okay and ready to play. But Mr. Reggie Pearson Sr. went to social media today and said, my guy might be down this week, but you better believe he'll be back stronger than ever. Can't keep him down. So Josh, do we take that as Reggie's not playing this Saturday? And if so, what does it mean for the Oklahoma Sooners?
I would, yes, lean to take that at face value that Reggie Pearson is not playing for Oklahoma this weekend, though I do think obviously he's going to be back pretty quickly. That's been the indication, it sounds like, from Brent Venables. I'm not going to totally rule out gamesmanship here, but I'm sort of thinking that Papa Pearson is being transparent, open, and honest.
I mean,
if he'll prove it otherwise, that's right. That's right. Well, so I hear you. I mean, it wouldn't be the craziest thing to pull a little gamesmanship, but at any rate, probably mentally everybody, and they've been working toward this, John, but mentally everybody should prepare, right, as though Reggie Pearson is not available for the Big 12 opener.
Yeah, and you know what? This is why it's so important to have this depth, and we've talked about it ad nauseum on the show, that the safety position is one of the deepest positions on the team, if not the deepest, based on who they've got available: the Billy Bowman, Key Lawrence, Pearson maybe not available, Peyton Bowen, and Robert Spears Jennings. Robert Spears Jennings was a guy that Brent Venables mentioned in his weekly availability as someone who's really carved out a role for himself and someone who flashed even last year. So there's a chance that we might see a little bit more of him, especially now that maybe Dasan McCullough and maybe Peyton Bowen might rotate over there at Cheetah. Maybe you see more Reggie Pearson, or sorry, not Reggie Pearson, Robert Spears Jennings at a little bit of strong safety. But that depth is going to be tested this week. You're facing a team that's got good athletes and got good team speed. So you're going to need your safeties to be playing at the best of their ability. I think we know we have a solid group in Bowman and Key Lawrence, guys that are capable of making plays. And then, I mean, the star continues to ascend for Peyton Bowen. And I mean, you don't want to see anybody go down, but maybe this puts Peyton Bowen playing a little bit more traditional safety this week than maybe playing Cheetah. So it'll be fascinating to see kind of how that goes. As we look to Cincinnati, Josh, what do you think it is we're going to learn about the Oklahoma Sooners in this game?
I think we're going to learn a lot about Oklahoma in this game. Just real quick on the injury front, John.
Sure.
It feels like Oklahoma has improved its competitive depth. Yes, they're better prepared to withstand this, but they're kind of at that tipping point a little bit. One or two more injuries, and all of a sudden, you're really kind of up against it, because Harrington being out, okay, well, you feel okay that if Dasan McCullough is coming back, that was somebody that was probably right there in the race to start at Cheetah, just barely lost out to Harrington. But then beyond that, okay, we saw Kip Lewis get a little bit of work. We know that Bowen can play there, and maybe even that's where he's best positioned right now to play for Oklahoma, John. But with what's going on with Reggie Pearson, and across the rest of the defensive backfield, I mean, you're talking about Gentry Williams has been dinged up, Josiah Wagner. So they're stretching the competitive depth back there in the defensive backfield. So they've got a little bit of options. It makes somebody like Key Lawrence all of a sudden all the more important, right? That occasionally we go through these things and it's like there's a forgotten name or two along the way throughout the offseason and the beginning of the season. And now all of a sudden Key Lawrence might be one of the most important pieces back there for you for OU. But man, let's hope that they can stay healthy, I guess, is the point of all of this, right? Going forward, because they're kind of right at the end of that tightrope where they really can't sustain any more injuries back there. But what are we going to learn versus Cincinnati? Well, I think we're going to learn if we're going to get our first true good glimpse of run defense. Is this what we think it is, right? Are they substantially improved there? So I think that's one. You'll get that answered. And then offensively, are they going to keep taking care of the football? Turnover margin, is Oklahoma just improved in that regard? Are they going to be less inclined at inopportune times to turn the football over or to lose the turnover margin? Because that was something that, as typifies teams that go 6-7 or 7-6 or in that those thereabouts, typically you're turning the football over at bad moments. And right now, Oklahoma's been very clean in that department. And, oh, by the way, they had 5 interceptions last week. So I think we're going to find out those two items, right? Run defense, does it stay improved? Is that a legitimate, nationally strong unit for Oklahoma, right? And same thing in the turnover margin.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing if the wide receivers can keep up their level of production. I think they can, because Cincinnati's pass defense is not great. They can get taken advantage of. They're grabby as well. So they might draw a few pass interference calls against guys like Andrew Anthony, Nick Anderson, Jalil Farouk. It'll be fascinating to see how they use the passing game because it's going to be tough sledding against this run defense for Oklahoma. If they decide they want to get the ball out quick, get it to the perimeter, let their guys make plays after the catch, and then take some shots downfield, I think that's a great way to avoid Cincinnati's interior. We'll see what the game plan is. I think they've got a lot of options at their disposal for how they want to attack this Cincinnati defense. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they go about that. Do they just try to pound away and take, Cincinnati's strength out of the game by trying to run right at them? Or do they, try to avoid it altogether and go to the perimeters and get out wide and use their team's speed? It's going to be really fascinating to follow. Saturday, 11 a.m. is kickoff on Fox, part of Big Noon Kickoff. We will talk about more of that as the week goes on. Final thing we're going to touch on is this special teams has been special each and every week for the Oklahoma Sooners. Brent Venables was asked about it in his Tuesday media availability. We'll talk about how all that can help Oklahoma go to the next level after the break. But first, we want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel. Snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. When you place a $5 bet, that's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get in on the action. The app is easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel is an official partner of the NFL. Josh, the Oklahoma Sooners special teams has come up with big plays in each and every game. In week 1, it was the Gavin Freeman punt return touchdown. In week 2, it was Peyton Bowen's blocked punt that set up Oklahoma in SMU territory early in that game. And then again, in week 3, early in the game, the first kickoff, Jalil Farouk takes it 62 yards, albeit he fumbles at the end of the play. But special teams did everything right up until that moment of ball security, which Jalil Farouk's going to learn from, that you got to be secure with the ball every time out. How key has it been for Oklahoma to get these game-changing plays every single week?
Oh, I think it's huge. I mean, obviously, yeah, the Farouk thing, it wrapped that football up, but heck of a play by Tulsa to punch the football out. And sometimes those things, unfortunately, opponent's going to go make a play. So obviously learning experience for Jalil Farouk, and ultimately it came at a good time versus an opponent like Tulsa to where it wasn't altogether costly. Oh, by the way, you wound up winning the turnover margin by a wide margin last week. But no, to me, I mean, it's gigantic, man, for Oklahoma to be doing what it's doing in special teams. That was one of the things that I just disliked about the previous regime. And I know that maybe at times it's like, oh, here they go again. It's an Oklahoma shows dumping on Lincoln Riley. But there was a lot of things I liked about the Lincoln Riley era. Special teams was not one of them. The reluctance to try and return a punt, the reluctance to try and, go block a punt, or, really just to do anything in special teams besides lining up and kicking field goals or punting away for field position in spots. To me, great teams are great in special teams. Typically the best teams in America, it's timeless. You're great in that third phase too. And I'm not ready to just sit here and say that Oklahoma is quote unquote great yet in special teams, but I do see the makings of a program and of a head coach and of a special teams coordinator in Jay Nunez that put a legitimate, they're putting emphasis on the details in special teams. And again, John, for me, that's important. I think that's winning football.
At minimum, you don't want special teams to hurt you by missing kicks, botching snaps on the punt, things like that. You don't want special teams to hurt you. But if you can leverage it and get big plays out of it, it's such an advantage. And to completely ignore a phase of football because you're risk averse, that's really what it came down to. It's ignoring opportunity. It's like the people who are 20 years old and they're starting to put away for retirement, but they're super conservative and they put all their stuff in bonds. They don't put anything in potentially high yield stocks, and they're not, chasing the higher interest rates because they're afraid of losing money at 20, when that's the time that you should be a little bit more aggressive, as opposed to when you get to 65 and you get a little bit more conservative. Now, Lincoln Riley was acting like he had something to lose with the way that his philosophy was on special teams. So it's good to see Brent Venables kind of harnessing that, allowing the special teams to make big plays. We saw it even last year, the fake field goals, the Michael Turk swing pass to Zach Schmidt going out wide against Texas. And then there was the Michael Turk flip up to Zach Schmidt against Iowa State, which was a huge touchdown in that game. So being able to leverage special teams play, it's critical. And like you said, great teams are usually great in that phase. If Oklahoma is just good, that gives them an advantage because it's hard to find really good special teams players when there's so many teams that need good kickers, good punters, good return men. It's hard to find that. But if you can find good return men, which I feel like they have in Gavin Freeman and Jalil Farouk, and you find solid kicker in Zach Schmidt, and then I think their punting situation is working itself out, and I think it's been okay. I don't really have any complaints. The best thing is you don't notice the punting situation. They're not shanking punts. They're not muffing, snaps. It's been good. So they're an ascending group, and it's going to help Oklahoma win games. It's already played a major factor so far through the non-conference, and I think it's going to continue to show itself throughout the rest of the season as well as they get aggressive and try some fake punts around, when they're on their opponent's 45-yard line or something. They don't want to just give it away, and they might try a fake punt, or we might see that fake field goal flip to Zach Schmidt come up again this season as well. So they're putting some stuff on tape that's going to make people take notice of Oklahoma's special teams.
And just to add a little bit of fuel to this fire here for this discussion on the way out the door, it's not just some manufactured talking point for you and I. The team is 8th in punt return yards right now.
Huge.
They're 6th in kick return yards. Zach Schmidt, as you mentioned, has made both of his field goals. They've returned a punt for a touchdown. Jalil Farouk, again, had that monster return, got to take care of the football. But, so they're delivering in special teams. This is not just, Oklahoma's done one or two nice things. No, it's, to me, again, it's clear that they're putting an emphasis on it. Just one final quote from Venables here. Quote, and I'm sort of taking some parts out, so this is not all sequential here, but here's the quote from Venables. I think our coaching staff does a really nice job. Field position was an issue for us a year ago, and your offense is part of that. Your defense is part of that. Your special teams is part of that. Worked really hard at it. So I think it's a combination of all of those things, but the players are buying into it as much as anything.
And that's the part where then he goes on to talk about a guy like Robert Spears Jennings, who's bought into having a role on special teams to help leverage himself into having a role on the defense, because he mentioned you can only travel so many guys when you go to an away game. You can only take so many with you. And so having those guys that buy in, and if you have a team that buys into special teams, I think then you really have got a team, because they're willing to lay down and do the dirty work and do the things that aren't going to, cause people to get excited and shout your name from the rooftops. But it's an important facet of the game that if you're bad at, it can lose you a football game. If you're at least neutral, you may not lose a football game because of it, but you're not going to win any games because of it. But if you're good at it, it can be the difference between winning and losing sometimes if you're really good at special teams. So exciting to see Oklahoma taking advantage of it and making plays each week. All right, bold prediction, Josh, real quick. Didn't prep this. Who makes a special teams play this week? We've had a big play each week. Who makes the special teams play this week?
I'm going to say Farouk has another big return and hangs on to the football. So I'm not going to send him to the to pay dirt just yet, but I'll say that he has another nice chunk return.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go with the name that Venables mentioned, and someone we'll see, and that's Robert Spears. I'm gonna say he's gonna have a big hit on a kickoff or punt return that's going to keep them inside the 20 when they try to bring it out, or they try to manufacture some field position. He's going to have a good open field tackle that just eliminates a return. So let's watch some special teams. Let us know what your bold prediction for special teams is going to be this week. Let's honor the teams units. They're a big and integral part of what Oklahoma could be this year. And that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Sooners. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef. Follow myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. And we can't wait to break down more of what's going to happen this weekend and all season long for you here. So until next time, he's Josh Helmer. I'm John Williams. Boomer Sooner.